first.
That's right.
Concept, we're doing that.
That'll take care of it.
Second and third of February. Paul, that work for
You
you?
don't move into February?
Yeah, first day, first two days.
So it's the second,
Third.
Groundhog Day.
Okay,
We can do it right now.
all right.
He's totally right. He's totally right.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 p.m., so we'll call the meeting to order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners. Appreciate everybody coming tonight. If you would, please rise for invocation. Pastor, thank you for coming and doing this for us tonight.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you in this season of Thanksgiving that we get to live where we live. We thank you for the great community that we're in. We thank you for each citizen that makes up this community and for their participation here. Lord, I thank you for those who've been elected to serve, and I pray that you give them wisdom tonight as they make decisions. Lord, we thank you on this day when our country has an election. We get to participate in government in a way that we don't on a daily basis. And Lord, I pray that we will make decisions that honor you, and Lord, that you will be glorified through the actions of not just here in our county, but throughout our nation. We love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you again. All right. Okay. Next on our agenda is a public hearing. Ordinance of Upson County to amend the county zoning ordinance, Code of Upson County to eliminate the special exception process requirement to permit recreational vehicles to be used as temporary residences during residential construction, creating a new permitting process to be implemented in zoning districts AR, R1, R2, R4, R5, amending Article 28, recreational vehicle regulations, eliminating home occupations as special exceptions, and providing for repeal conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. So, gentlemen, at this time I'll have a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of opening the hearing? Public hearing is now open. We have no one signed up.
No, sir.
So, that being the case, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing? Okay. With that, Mr. Curry, we'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. First, I'll just summarize basically what these, 5 or 6 pages do. And then if you want to go into any detail, we can do that. Basically, and there was an explanation, I mean, that's what the purpose of the title is, to explain what the ordinance does, is it was the Planning Commission's opinion, and this was an initiative of the Planning Commission, that, as you know, we've been doing a lot of these special exceptions where the RV is lived in during construction of the home, and then after a certain number of months they're out, or when the home is complete. The process had become so automatic that the Planning Commission thought that this should just be a permit process, and in the interest of the citizen, of course, it would go from a 2-month process to 2 or 3 days, depending on how long it took me to process it. After, of course, a complete building permit was issued, which had to have a complete permit from environmental health for the well and a septic tank, and a driveway permit from the road department. And then not only do they have to be permitted, but the well and septic have to be operational and inspected. That's one step beyond a traditional building permit. So again, the process has become so automatic, and even when the applicant asks for 6 months or 9 months to finish the house, the Planning Commission as well as the Board of Commissioners just automatically give them 12 months. So there's not been a whole lot of variance in that decision-making for quite a while. So what this would do is take that permit requirement and put it in the RV section of the code, which is section 2809, and you remember a couple years ago we developed that RV section. This would take the same requirements that we have now, and instead of being in a special exception, they would be moved into a permit process through the Building and Zoning Department. Now, there is a section in these zoning districts that talks about certified hardships. I think in the time that I've been here, we've only had one certified hardship. It was medical. The parents were very ill, and the daughters wanted to move into it with a manufactured home, and they were granted that. Planning Commission did not suggest that section be changed, and I don't either. It's very infrequent, and maybe the situations will be more unique. So even though those processes sort of mirror each other, just one's during construction, the other one's for basically medical hardship, they did not recommend a change to the medical hardship section, so that would still be a special exception. But this similar process for construction of homes would be the only difference. As is often happens when we go to a section of the code and we want to amend it, there's a section in there that hasn't been used or accurate in the whole time I've been here, and I don't know how long, and you don't want it to be, and that's every home occupation is a special exception. I'd say 80% of the businesses in unincorporated Upson County are home occupations. You don't want to have to review every one of those. So when I was hired, they were never considered a special exception. It's administratively handled. And so what I do is I just delete that section in there where it references them being a use. That being said, I'll talk to the Planning Commission because I still think it's good to have similar language to that in as an accessory use and list it as an accessory use, and then home occupations as determined, by the other regulations of this ordinance. So I do think we need to mention it, even though it's deleted here. But we need to bring that in slightly better language, and that wouldn't be a very complicated ordinance. But that was just a sort of a ancillary thing that when we were looking at this area, the accessory uses and special exceptions, oh, by the way, we've got this stuff that hasn't been used like over a decade, let's clean that up. So that's the only reason why the occupation tax information or line or provision is deleted, is just to clean up something that hasn't been acted upon in years anyway. And that's it, Mr. Chairman. If you want to go through the particular sections, obviously the AR, the R1, R2, 5, 4, and 5, it's identical. We take the same section out and we put it into the RV section of the ordinance. Again, would be a new section, 2809. Right now that's a reserve section that has nothing in it. We would take all those provisions and put those in there. That's the summary, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody any questions?
Yep. I don't ever remember approving one that went in anything other than AR.
Well, considering that 80% of the county is AR, that's probably true. I think the hardship, I don't remember what the hardship was. It probably was not. It was in a subdivision area. Can't remember the road name. That might not have been AR. But yes, because a lot of these are in the new subdivisions, quote unquote. But if you look at the provisions, that same provision is in R1, R2, R4, and R5.
I don't know if I'd let one in a subdivision anyway.
Well, all of the new ones on Willis Road, that is a subdivision that I.
Well, yeah, but but it's still AR. It's not an R1, 2, 4.
Well, I mean, to Commissioner Jones' point, say for instance the subdivision on Highway 19, Cheryl Jean, that's I believe R2.
Correct.
Would we want someone to? So if we do this administratively, so it's kind of by right they would be able to apply for this. So in this case, you could have somebody living in a camper on Highway 19 as their house is being built.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, do keep in mind, this is coming directly from the Planning Commission and was not staff-driven, so.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. And I don't know that, to Commissioner Jones's point, is it something you'd want to see in your residential zoning to allow them to live in a camper?
Well, and again, it's already been in there and this is an original provision. This isn't anything that any commission did at some point. This is original language from 1995. I had researched that a while ago. So this has always been in there. And it's always been in R1, 2, 4, and 5, so, I mean, if you want to change that now, obviously you can do that, but it's always been in there. But not often has it been exercised other than AR, because that's where most of our new development is, because that's the majority of the county, and that's where the open land is. We have very little R1. That's a minimum square footage house over 2,000 square feet. I don't know if we've applied that since I worked here. And R4 and 5. Well, R5 is like Lincoln Park, Rural Maine. We do have some R5 around the county. Not a lot of R4. And a little bit of R2.
Well, then you look at lot size too. I mean,
Everything else is an
how could
acre.
you position some of these smaller residential lots? I mean, how are you going to position a camper there while you're constructing your home? I
Well,
don't-
those are acre lots. I mean, that's the other minimum. All those
Yeah.
others is a minimum of 1 acre, so
They'd be in the front yard.
I think it's pretty.
I'm gonna throw,
You already did. Go ahead.
I'm gonna throw another wrench in there. I mean, this is a monkey wrench. How about if we didn't allow them at all?
That's been discussed.
Not allowing, you're saying not allowing RVs as temporary residences
Right.
anyway?
Right.
My only advice as your planner is obviously it's a popular thing with your citizens. It's something they want. And so that's my advice, is because your citizens want it. I mean, I've had inquiries recently about today, as a matter of fact, about it.
Just think, so in order for them to get it, they have to have building plans, pull the building permit. They just can't say, I'm going to build a home here within 12 months. In this case, they've got
Process
to-
has not changed.
They have to have a building permit. There's,
The well has to be in, the septic tank has to be in and inspected. That's the difference. When we issue a building permit now, it doesn't have to be inspected yet, and it doesn't have to be in. You just got approval, just like your driveway, you get the permit. This process takes it a step, and always has. Whenever you've reviewed these, the septic tank was in. We don't require that. When you issue a building permit, it might not be in, but you have the permit from environmental health. The driveway, you have a driveway permit. It may not be built yet, but you have a permit. This process actually requires them to be in place, as it has all these that you've reviewed in the past. It's required that. And that's the commitment. Obviously, in '95, when they adopted this, they wanted to make sure if we're going to give you this allowance for that RV, we have to have as deep a commitment that you are going to build that house, and that's what we have. Plus, you're allowed to limit it. You've always limited it to 12 months or less, and I think there's even a maximum. I mean, you may never go past 24 months. That's always been the maximum.
Well, I think a lot of ours now, they come to us after they've been in the RV for months. So I'm assuming they would have to come get the permit the building permit and this permit prior to.
Well, and we're going to have the same problem, is you're going to have people that put the RV there first and then come, just like we do, they'll start a house, and oh, by the way, no, you got to have a permit for that. Normally not houses, but smaller structures.
but you got language in here that you double the fee if that's the case.
Right. And there's been suggestions that we triple the fee. If that's what the Board of Commissioners wants, we could triple the fee. But I think that's very appropriate, because I think that, as you know, there's, it's probably 40% that you've seen in the last year. The
And there's
RV's
no-
been there already.
No repercussions.
And now that if you speed up the process from 2 months to, let's say, a week, I think certainly you can wait for a week-long process, whereas a 2-month process,
Doug, I'm just gonna ask you to try to recall this. I don't expect you to know this, because I don't know it, and I'm not sure anybody else here would, but, you made a statement, and I've heard that statement before about this seems to be something our citizens want. How many people actually are current Upshur County citizens prior to applying for this permit to build? I mean, that already live in our community today and decide they want to build somewhere else, and they can live in the county? Just give me your-
less than half, probably. I mean, we've had one gentleman that's gone through it twice with you, and he's been a resident here the whole time.
So less than half the people that apply are from our community.
They're new residents, but obviously they own property already. They're new residents.
But they didn't do the homework.
Well, the ones that put the RV in first, and as you've seen, that's probably half maybe or less.
I'm sort of leaning with Commissioner Jones. Why are we even doing it?
Well, you know,
I think-
one of the benefits to doing it, to allowing it, you know, and this was at the height, when we were just realizing we were at the height of a lot of construction and not having a lot of builders and stuff out there, and the time it takes to construct a new home, then there was no inventory for rental properties and other things like that. So say you live here and you've got a piece of property and you want to build on it, you sell your house, where are you going to live while you build your dream house?
And, you know, again, to speak to the people who come through our office, we hear that as the house sold faster than we thought it would. But then, again, one gentleman I talked about who's gone through it twice, he didn't sell the house right away. He finished the new house. He never moved into the RV. And we've had that happen a couple of times where they get permission to move in, but because of how everything worked out, they never moved into the RV anyway. But of course, we have the opposite that move in early.
Playing devil's advocate to what I just said, I'll say that, you know, I go by one that we permitted not too long ago, and the RV is there, but, you know, I ride by it at least once a week and I see no activity. So the clock is running. So we don't go out there, and they know they've got 12 months, you know.
Well, in terms of the building permit, they have less than that. They've got 6 months to initiate their first inspection. But our own ordinances say, or is a process. Anyway, you only need one inspection every 12 months to keep your permit viable. Now, does that happen very often with our current homes? Not really. These people just bought the homes, there are new subdivisions, they're popping them in there, but that could
Do
happen.
you know how many RV permits we currently have active?
No, I could easily get that number.
Is
I
it-
do keep special accepted log, but I don't have that number off the top.
That number's probably less than a dozen.
Active ones? It could be slightly over a dozen.
They're gonna be more than that.
Do we have any that have exceeded the 12 months or so?
Now, most of the time, they shut down before that 12 months. And I've never been asked for an extension. Never happened. And in the ordinance, it allows for an extension by the zoning administrator to a maximum of 12 months. Never happened.
I mean, we are starting to see things slow down a little bit. I think there is some rental properties available, not many, but if you're in that situation, say you wanted to go and build your dream home and you sold your home because you want to take advantage of the market, you know, what do?
And one of the
Force them to move out of the county?
one of the new folks did have material stolen, and they basically blame our yellow sign for calling attention to their property, because the house build was quite a bit off the road. And they said you might not have even noticed it, except that yellow sign drew attention to it.
Like when I was building my house, I had posted signs, I had do not trespass, do not anything. You can't see my house from the road. They drive up there anyway. It don't matter. You know, can't blame it on the yellow sign.
Another one you may not know the answer to, and I probably could research a little more about it. But what are some of the surrounding counties like Pike and Lamar doing?
Never looked into it.
Because I just noticed I've never really seen a house being built in Lamar or Pike County with somebody living in an RV.
We can certainly find out for you.
I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, I understand, but, you know, the more options you give me, the more things I have to choose from. You know, plan well is my advice to anybody. But we see this, I know at least 4 in the past year that's come before us, that they were there before the fact. So it appears to me that they don't even know, they're not even concerned about finding out if they can legally do it anyway. They're just doing it.
We got those issues in other areas
Right,
as well,
right.
so.
I mean,
I'll say, I'm leaning towards eliminating the language that allows it to be in anything other than AR. But I would be inclined to allow it in AR. Just based on the market, getting building supplies and being able to, nothing's really changed there. Supply chain issues and things like that. I think it's getting better, but we're just not there yet. It may be that we can come back later as we've got some other housing options available, more rental properties and stuff like that. But I would hate to force somebody to sell their home and have to relocate outside of Upson County when they had property here and could have just lived in a travel trailer while they built their house.
Before we do a whole lot on this, I'm like James, I'd like to know what Lamar, Pike, Meriwether, I mean, if we the only one doing it, why are we doing it?
We set the standards.
we may have lowered the standards.
I mean, they
Since
may not be doing anything. They may not care.
Mr. Chairman, oh, sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
I was still simply say, I would like to know those results, but at a minimum, I agree with what Commissioner Jones and Chairman Allen said. I would restrict it only to AR, and then I want to get it a little more strict on it. Is I want to back that up from, they get 12 months, and if they get an extension, they get 3 months extension, and that is it. At what point, I mean, we just,
Does anybody ever ask for extensions?
No.
They just keep on building on their house
No,
for 2 years?
most of the time they finish before the 12 months.
But you don't know if they moved out of camper or not, right?
Well, yes, because we see during the final CO inspection that it's not being lived in anymore, or it's about to be moved out.
Mr. Chairman. But one thing I would submit to you that you should consider as you're reviewing this change or recommended change in detail, the part of the process would go away would be the notice, correct? So there would be no reason to notice a public hearing because there wouldn't be a public hearing.
right.
Right.
So therefore, you would have the potential that a live-in RV could pop in as your neighbor, and you would never have had the opportunity to discuss it or to raise that as a concern with anybody.
And as a commissioner, if this is automatic, I'm getting phone calls, and each one of you are going to get a phone call, and you're not going to have a clue. So then you're going to have to call Doug, and he's going to have to look it up, and Doug's going to say, I need the address. You're going to have to try to figure all this out. You're going to get your time and staff's time all involved in, because look, most of the time, I don't know about you guys, but something typically happens like that in my district, I get a phone call.
Oh, I do every time.
We're not going to have a good way.
That's usually how we find the ones that aren't permanent.
Right.
Well, look, I mean, quite frankly, I get phone calls about somebody living in a teepee.
Right.
So, you're still gonna get those phone calls, but it's still gonna move these RVs in there because they're just not gonna know, especially if they're
Mr.
coming
Chairman,
from
one of the biggest messed ups we had was somebody who put in a septic tank and a well and then didn't build anything for 6 or 7 months. We got so many phone calls about that. Of course, that's not another story now, but that was amazing. Well, they put in a well and septic, nothing's being built. What's going on? Nothing, no permit.
People are paying attention, and they want to know.
Well,
Yeah, I feel like removing the Rs and keeping it in AR and leaving it as an option, that's the way I'm leaning, because if I'm gonna build a house on, 60 plus acres and I'm 600 feet off the road, not really.
We have people living in RVs or little Quonset hut side of somebody's house now with no permit and nobody knows they're there.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it. I've seen it all the time, and I can show you several people that living in RVs and they don't intend to build a house. They got extension cords running from a post with a temporary meter there, and they living in there.
well, that's it, but then it's in violation of and it's a code enforcement issue.
our code enforcement issues don't reach those people, then what do we do then? You know, I can definitely support temporary RV in an AR zone. That's, you know, the people with intent to build a house and it's going to stay there for 12 months. We don't want to do anything. You mentioned this thing. We don't want to do anything to make people relocate to another county because they sold their house fast and they can't live in that RV while they building that house. We don't need to have that situation, in my opinion.
When the cost to construct the house is going up, so a lot of people want to get out of their house that they're in, so they don't have two payments.
Now, some of this added language, you know, in this thing, in no case will a temporary travel trailer be allowed to remain for a period in excess of 24 months. So,
12 months, leave it 12. We don't allow them to do it, we don't put them on time frame.
well,
They apply for a hardship.
all right, I'm gonna throw another wrench out there. Would we, until we get everybody's opinion on this, that we talk about it in a work session? Or are y'all ready to do something on it tonight?
I think we,
Mr. Chairman, tonight's just the first reading, so it's no action.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we do have two other ordinances. The Planning Commission's asked about the tiny homes ordinance, and, you know, if they could get a status on that, and then the Gateway Corridor ordinance. So we've got two sitting, and you're about to get the animal ordinance in a couple of weeks, or a couple of months, too, so. And that's 20 pages.
The sooner you can get us a draft, the better. I mean, it doesn't have to be ready for prime
Get you one
time,
tonight.
just share whatever you have so that we can, and I'm sure English Law Group is already knee deep in those,
They get sent them from the Planning Commission.
but they, okay.
No, have I gotten any input? You're aware of it?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, one more thing to consider might be, and I know as we move through the comprehensive plan revision, you know, our minimum lot size may change as a result of that process for AR, for single family. Doesn't mean you couldn't have a more stringent requirement for the ability to live in RV and build a home. You could say that it would only be an RV and you'd need a minimum of 20 acres to be able to do that. So I think you would have that opportunity as well. If you know, to Commissioner Watson's point, you know, maybe you only want it in certain circumstances to where it's not really going to have an impact on adjacent property. And on a 20-acre parcel, and I'm just using that as an example, that might be an opportunity where, okay, then in that case, if you have a minimum of 20 acres, then that's something you can apply for, or potentially that's something we can permit administratively because there will be so few of them.
So our,
Speaking of, is that property on Franklindale that we approved the guy after he'd already been living in it for a while? Now he started his house.
RV on Franklin?
Yep.
I don't remember that one.
I can't remember the guy's name.
okay.
But anyway, did he ever finish his house? Is he
I'd have to
still
look
living
into
in
Franklin.
there?
Okay, well, it sounds like we're close, but we're not all. So, I mean, first reading tonight, next meeting, second reading, vote.
Right. Okay, so that'll work.
All right?
Can I make a recommendation, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
My opinion and my impression would be that if this is a public hearing, we need to tailor whatever the conversation is going to be exactly to what it is titled. And we talked about removing things and not allowing things. But this specifically was to create a new procedure, nothing else. So when this thing rolls back in, my opinion, will better be specifically tailored to what y'all are intending to do.
It's the adoption of this ordinance revision.
Right.
So, so you're saying that,
As it sits right here now, if this were the second reading, you were going to vote, all you would be voting on is the creation of a new procedure, not what's in the, and I just thought it prudent to maybe mention that now. So if that's where the direction the board's going, or Mr. Courier is discussing, then I think it's important that when these are public hearings and you're notifying the public, here's what we're going to hear tonight. If you're putting something else in place, I think you're going to have problems.
specifically, what I hear you saying is this discussion now where we're talking about possibly eliminating it,
Exactly.
prohibiting it in some of the residential areas.
Yes,
So-
because as I read this, and I may be wrong, which I usually am, but as I read this hearing is restricted to creating a new procedure.
But the procedure has a bunch of other stuff with it.
No, not legally,
But I understand exactly what it's saying. We're not talking about changing the ordinance, we're talking about changing the procedure to
Right.
To
follow the
administer it,
ordinance.
yes. No.
The administrative process of granting this ordinance. We were just here to talk about taking our rights, it not coming to us and giving Doug those powers. We're not, and what we've done is, and with my help, is we dug into the ordinance, saying, well, we don't like the ordinance, so we went from doing, just changing, giving Doug the authority to approve these, to, we don't like this ordinance, we're ready to rewrite it. This is two different things.
But he's already rewritten the ordinance. Here's the ordinance. I mean, he's got strikes and he's got additions and he's got, it's all right there.
Well, we're making an ordinance change at that point, so we got two different,
Okay.
well,
So, well, at this point, if y'all would get together and figure out what is the best way to proceed, if this isn't, if we are comfortable coming forward at our next meeting as a second reading for this, then so be it. If not, then how do we step back from what you've heard us say tonight and just say, how do we
Doug is genius to figure this out.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think it would be as simple as if we made substantial changes, like our attorney was saying, we would just have another first reading.
Exactly.
Well,
what do
and
y'all
I
think?
also think if it was substantially changed, that you would recommend your changes and we send it back to the planning commission, because obviously it would be a whole new ordinance, so.
Why does it need to
depending
go back to the planning commission?
Because it's a whole new document, it's not what they had forwarded, so.
I mean, if they've worked it and,
Well, but, and the ordinance is right there. I mean, if you look into your stuff in your little workbook, it's all there, all this language stricken, it's there.
Well, that's
But-
called out in the
But according
hearing.
to Pascal, we're only supposed to vote on a change of the
how
way
we
it's
administer the
done,
program.
not the ordinance. And they've got this lumped in here with the ordinance.
Which I think would make it very easy to, I think Jason's correct. My opinion would be Jason's correct. Just, change what you want to change, get rid of what y'all agree to do, and make it a first reading.
and at what point are we gonna agree to what we want to change?
That's what I'm trying to figure it out right
Yeah,
now.
and we can't.
I mean, we can.
I say we table this and take it to a work session,
So,
Or our
Motion to
retreat.
table.
or our retreat. Because we got comprehensive plan, a lot of things could impact this that we change tonight could impact the comprehensive plan. Once that comes back from citizen involvement, we could go in a total different direction, so. If it's applicable, I'd like to make a motion that we table this for further discussion at a later date after our retreat.
second.
So you're saying our retreat that we are trying to plan for the first of the
Right.
year?
Yes. Date to be announced later.
Chairman, I would recommend not tabling it. We weren't gonna take action on it anyway. So if we want to bring it back up, we can bring it back up. We weren't going to vote on it, you know what I mean? So tabling it, you're going to have to put a date on it.
That's what I was trying to get. I was trying to figure out a date.
Yeah, I would just
So
say.
if you just say,
You want to talk about it at the work session?
disapprove,
let's talk about it.
vote, I get where you're going. So,
Do you have to set a date for the second reading?
You don't have to have a second reading.
and what she's saying is it'll be a whole lot cleaner if we just, you have the recommendation from the planning commission and staff. The easiest thing to do is say no, and then we'll go back, we'll rework it, you can take it to the planning commission, whatever, and just with what we talked about. And, if we want to take it to our work session, whatever. So with that advice, astute clerk / assistant parliamentarian, is there a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to,
We got a motion on the table,
I'll withdraw, I'll make a motion to withdraw my motion.
and I'll withdraw my second.
So with that, is there a motion on this, this change, this ordinance?
I'll make a motion to continue the discussion at a.
Motion to deny, or?
We have to deny it first?
To
and then-
motion to disapprove.
Well, it's just a first reading,
We
so
don't- we
you
don't
don't have
have
to take
to
any
take a
action.
We're not
motion
taking
at
it.
all.
You're saying we don't do anything?
No.
So no motion.
If he withdraw the table motion that he made,
Okay.
we can just leave it as is because it was only a first reading.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, there's no action on the agenda, actually.
Okay, all right.
And
Okay, that being the
The
case,
second reading will be at any.
Right, okay.
all right. Moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda are public comments. Do we have any?
No public comment.
All right, gentlemen, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. On tonight's consent, you have approval of the October 20th, 2022 budget work session meeting minutes, approval of the October 25th regular meeting minutes, approval of the beer and wine renewals for this next year, and approval of the letters to Representative Camp and Senator Kennedy in opposition of the increased weight limits for timber trucks that we discussed in our work session. Is there a motion on the consent?
We'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Chairman Adams?
Yes. All right. New business. Only thing we have tonight are updates from staff and ourselves. So, Jason?
Mr. Chairman, I have gotten several questions from commissioners regarding survey responses. So, as of a couple of days ago, so let's say about 48 hours, we've got 440 survey responses. They are largely showing from one zip code, 30286, 64% of these responses indicate they live in unincorporated Upson. So looks like we're getting a nice balance, a response that matches city residents and unincorporated residents. We're getting an equal percentage of each. So nice response on that so far. And then the interest in brevity, I just have two other quick things. I know the board's been here and working hard since 2:30 today. A couple things having to do with our water utility. One, today, Mr. Berryhill was appointed as the full-time water superintendent. So if you have an opportunity, please wish him congratulations. He has worked in that in an interim capacity over the last few months and has really done an outstanding job. So I, for one, appreciate his level of effort, and I have every confidence that he's going to be serving in that capacity and serving us well for the next decade. The one thing that impresses me is that he is really dedicated to this community. He tells me all the time, Jason, I'm not going anywhere. I love my job. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So if you have an opportunity to congratulate him, please do that. January 1 for the first billing cycle, we'll begin our bank drafts at the utility department, and that will be for that'll be optional. That'll be for water and for solid waste. So you'll have that automatic draft option starting in January. And I don't know if it'll be ready for a January retreat, but we are commissioning a rate study with help of a consultant from Georgia Rural Water the same consultant I used in the previous position in another community. So it's, water rates is not something that we've looked at in the last 4 years. Obviously, our enterprise fund is doing quite well, so we've not really had the need. But there's a lot of new methodologies out there, and there's one specific that Mr. Berryhill and I are looking at. So hopefully sometime in the new year, we'll be able to present you probably at a regular work session the results of that study. So look forward to sharing that with you. That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Jessica?
I don't have any.
You kind of heard us kind of bantering around. We talking about the retreat for the first of the year. Kind of got a feeling we may be looking like the first or second or third of February now. January sounds like a pretty bad time for a lot of us. So
That works.
we can just all confirm maybe the second and third. That's a Thursday, Friday, and that would also take place that would be our work session for the month as well. So
That would be good.
if we could just all confirm second and third works for you, let Jessica know, and then we'll work some details. And that obviously includes you down there, Happy.
And Mr. Chairman, are we to assume the same? I thought the accommodations and the destination was actually very suitable for us last time at
Where we were last time?
Columbus.
If you don't rain.
Yeah, it did rain a lot.
All right.
Share my umbrella.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Whatever we can get the best deal.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good.
and it works for everybody. Okay. Mr. English, you have anything for us tonight?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Oh, come on now. I know you're a busy man. I know we got a couple things coming down the hopper. I anxiously await
One next
completion. Next week, right?
week. That's correct.
All right. All right. Mr. Watson?
The only thing I have is there's less than 20 minutes to go vote, so you still have a chance. So get out and
18
vote.
minutes?
Yeah, that's all I have.
All the stuff we're supposed to be talking about, we're not throwing you
Consent.
Okay, well, all that was under consent?
Mhm.
It's been a long day.
It has been a long
I
day.
think it's been a long day for you.
Nothing else?
Nope.
Mr. Jones?
I like it.
What?
I'm hungry.
Commissioner Jones?
I'm hungry too. And you didn't say it, nobody else said it, go dogs. So,
You better believe it.
I want to invite people, the small group we have here, but everybody in YouTube land, go out by and see the Andrews Chapel School. Big difference. I mean, you wouldn't believe what these people have done to Andrews Chapel School.
We cut trees? Did they get the tree?
Yeah, they limbed it up. I don't know if they've done any more tree work, but
We're going to actually remove that tree separate outside that contract.
Okay.
But anyway, it's, you can get in and out the side doors now. I mean, they did a good job. I
Did
mean,
we?
it looks good. They painted it.
We should, it'd be nice to get some pictures or something, post them up here somewhere, or have them at I know not a lot of people get out that way, maybe at a meeting or something, we could just do a quick little update with the community and put some pictures up on the board, what it looks like. Okay.
The other thing is kudos to all the county employees here. I mean, they do a heck of a job all day long, every day. And I'm proud of everyone that works here, and hopefully keep them a long time. And for that, congratulations early to Mr. Ben Watson. That's it.
Nope. Not jinxing them, are you?
No, I ain't jinxing it.
All right.
Too late now.
Commissioner Wild.
I have one little thing I want to mention. I was invited to go to attend a GEMA training session in Concord about 2 weeks ago with Ms. Marthan. And I attended that class. It was a very important class. It spells out several things that the responsibility of elected officials when we have an emergency. It was a great class, and if anybody get an opportunity to go, I would encourage that.
Maybe they'll have like another session or something. I mean, I was over in LaGrange that day with ACCG, and I mean, it was, and it was like only like a 1 week's notice.
Yeah.
I mean, but I appreciate you going.
Yeah.
So, all right. Nothing else? All right. Only thing I got is election almost over, and it is Veterans Weekend. There is a big difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Memorial Day, remember, you remember those who didn't come home, and on Veterans Day, you're able to remember all veterans. So for all the veterans out there here tonight, and those watching, and those that you have the opportunity to see, please thank them for what they do. I know there's a lot of appreciation for what a lot of people bring to the table these days. When it, but first and foremost, remember these folks that are serving in harm's way, and many times you don't hear where they are and what they're doing. So this, when they're doing their jobs and the shelves at Walmart are stocked, they're doing their jobs well. So there is a program this Saturday, 11 o'clock at the archives for the Upson Historical Society. Command Sergeant Major Chuck Thompson is the program, and pretty awesome guy. So if you're interested, go see him. Go see the program. So with that, thank everybody for what they're doing, and no final by the ways. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank y'all. Still alive. It's been a long day. Okay. I think that budget hearing
Benjamin?
Thank you, sir.
Not that you made it.
I may or may not see you next week.